Rice again.
You know, I have to give it to Athletic Club because they said, or Iñaki Williams said, in order to beat them at their stadium, we would have to sweat blood. And sure enough, that's what happened. We sweat blood, or Arsenal sweat blood, and they won. So, thanks for the honesty. This is not that kind of gooner. And we're coming to you after a 2-0 win at Athletic Club. It was our first match of the new Champions League season, so we are off to a successful start. And yeah, Iñaki Williams, during his pre-match presser, said, if Arsenal want to beat us in our stadium, they'll have to sweat blood, or at least that's what some outlets are claiming. I haven't seen anyone particularly reliable say that, but apparently that's what Iñaki Williams said, and Gabriel and Gyokeres were just like, you know what, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to slam my head into yours, give you a couple stitches, just have you bleeding from your neck on the field a little bit, and we'll win this easy. And it worked. So thank you for that little secret, Mr. Williams. Anyway, we're going to talk about the Athletic game. We're going to kind of get into a couple of the more interesting individual performances from the match, and we're also going to talk about some of the analysis that's come out from the game in the days or day since. So we'll get into that. We'll also talk about quick, or not quick necessarily. There's a lot to get into. But we'll do a Manchester City preview as well, and we'll look ahead to that game. And joining me to do all of that today is John, who you can follow on Twitter, 305cast. John, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Thank you for asking. I got the Dolphins-Bills game on over here, ready to watch the Dolphins get the crap kicked out of them. There's actually some interesting kind of correlations between the Dolphins and Arsenal, I think. I don't know how many people follow American football, but the Dolphins went undefeated in the 70s. I think they're one of 4 teams that went go invincible, and they haven't really done much since. So
I feel like they're kind of in their Emery era right now.
Yeah, right. Except they don't have a striker.
Yeah. A lot of fun players, though. A lot of fun players on that team.
Yeah, Waddle and Anyway,
can I ask you, because this is on Amazon Prime since it's a Thursday night game. Mm-hmm. When you watch Thursday night games on Amazon Prime, is the sound like 3 seconds behind?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So it's not just me, because
No.
I thought I was going crazy for like a year and a half now.
No, it happens. It doesn't happen all the time though, but sometimes it does. But anywho, a digression. Yeah, doing good.
Good. Glad to hear it. And we'll probably eat into the Dolphins-Bills game a little bit, but we'll try to get out here as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
but
they suck anyway.
Before we get into our match, and then we talk about City, should we just touch on Liverpool for a hot second? I don't want to spend too much time on it.
No, we should. It's like that meme of like they can't keep getting away with it, and it really is. It feels like they just keep getting away with it, and it's like it's so funny watching Drew on our group chat be like, they did it again. It's not sustainable. And you know what? He's probably right, but it's, I mean, those kind of last minute, it can really galvanize a team. Unfortunately, it gives them hope. It gives them belief in themselves, and it's giving them time and lack of pressure to kind of get their shit together. Unfortunately, so that is not great for us, but you know what? At the end of the day, we can't control what Liverpool does. We just got to go and do what we do, and that's what Arteta will be telling the guys. They'll be saying, "Hey, look, you just get every single point that's on the table there, and that's all that matters. It doesn't, that's all we can do. We can't really, focus on Liverpool too much as much as it's tempting to do so, and we're going to probably end up doing so. The players are just going to be focused on getting the points in front of them."
Yeah, and I texted you guys yesterday, and I was like, I think it might be sustainable. And I saw Billy Carpenter tweet, and if you don't follow Billy Carpenter, you absolutely should. He does these amazing tactical long reads and player analysis pieces on Substack. Maybe the best Arsenal writer out there, so go check him out. But Billy Carpenter tweeted something to the effect of, if a team that has a bunch of really great attacking players who kind of are good at set pieces and play until the final seconds of a match with high intensity week in week out, maybe for them scoring at the last second every single match week is kind of sustainable. So I'm at a similar point to you, right, where it's just like they'll do it until they don't, and I'm not going to sit here and wait for them to do it.
Yeah.
I protected my sanity yesterday.
Every week, what do I post? What I posted in the beginning of the season, where I said, "Yeah, we might be able to beat Liverpool, but not Plot Armor FC," and that's what we have right now. It's Plot Armor FC.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I interrupted you, but I think you're about to say that you're kind of in the same boat of just doing our own thing and just trying not to focus on them too much.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Chelsea Bayern yesterday over the Liverpool Atleti match, and I feel good about that decision. But also just like it, there's all this pressure around Arsenal right now, where it's like they have to win something, otherwise the season is a failure, and they've wasted all this money, yada yada. If Liverpool are going to do this every week of the season, I'm just going to focus on our team, and I'm going to focus on enjoying what we're doing, because I still think, we're really good. I think we're really fun to watch for the most part. And, yeah, I mean, like you said, you can only control what you're doing, and hopefully things will work out with, with other teams and stuff like that. So, yeah, no crash out over Liverpool at this point in time. I think I'm out of energy for the Liverpool crash outs, but, yeah, just wanted to touch on that. But turning to our match, because there's a lot to dig into here. Again, we won 2-0 against Athletic Club, and I just want to start off by saying I definitely underestimated them when we did our preview. And, I talked about this like it was going to be this straightforward affair, and maybe the scoreline might suggest that, but it really wasn't. It almost felt like a derby, right? Mm-hmm. Because we started Raya, we started Mosquera, we started Zubimendi, we started Marino in midfield, kind of like I thought we would, just because, I think Clive from the Arsenal Vision really put it well, where he said Marino kind of does both what Havertz and Odegaard do, where on the physical side he's kind of this point, this fulcrum for the center backs and Raya to aim at whenever they're trying to play the ball long over the press. He's the target man they are trying to hit, and he'll win the duels, and he'll kind of compete physically with most players. And then on the technical side, he has a good pass in him. I think his technical ability is pretty good, and generally pretty solid in tight spaces. So yeah, I and kind of on top of that, this is a guy who's very familiar with Athletic Club, having played in La Liga for years. So I thought that was probably what Arteta was going to do. That's what Arteta did. But yeah, how did you feel about our midfield, generally speaking? Because there've been some complaints about our ball progression with that midfield three of Zubimendi, Rice, and Marino. So how did you feel they played in that regard?
I think they had a lot of difficulty with how with Athletic set up, and I'm right there with you. I was a little surprised and impressed actually with how they came and did what they did. I thought Zubimendi was obviously kind of in a situation where he looked. I don't want to say he looked tired, because I don't think he was tired, but he definitely did not look like he was able to kind of have the freedom that he wanted to. And I'll tell you who I thought had a really poor, especially in the first half. I thought Rice had a really poor match, especially in the first half. And I messaged it on the thing. I noticed it really early on, some kind of maybe it's just because he's back from internationals and he didn't play the full, he didn't play last game week, and then it was kind of. I saw him misplace a pass. I saw him have a bad tackle, and then it just kept happening. And I was going, oh man, he's not having a great game, And I feel like when you have a player that's as pivotal and important as Rice, who's not on it, it just shows that midfield is very determined. It's very difficult to kind of get what we want out of that midfield without him doing what he needs to do. And that kind of goes for everyone in that midfield, right? If one player is kind of lacking, it just goes to show how that whole midfield unit can actually suffer from it. So I think that's something that's going to develop with time, the ability to kind of overcompensate and be able to correct when you have a player that's not playing to their full capabilities. I just don't think they've played enough together yet to be able to do that in a way that allows us to really fully effectuate Arteta's game plan. But other than that, I think Marino, you kind of nailed that one, guessing that he'd come in and play and add this kind of physical controlling presence, which he did in many cases. It was a lot about winning duels in that midfield, I thought, or trying to win duels. And I just think Nwaneri, as much as he would have provided some creativity there and maybe a little bit more flair, I think this was one where Arteta probably wanted to just control things, and it turned out to be the right decision.
Yeah. I see a lot of people kind of annoyed about Nwaneri not playing, and that is understandable. I just think the one thing with Nwaneri in these situations is that he is a very technically gifted player, but I feel like especially these away matches and these trips to teams like Athletic Club, you can see this kind of in the Portuguese league as well, among other sides. These are teams that are really physical, and these are teams that they'll try to outduel you and slow down the game and make it stop-start and really play with a level of athletic intensity that I'm not entirely sure Nwaneri has at this point in his career. And that's not a knock on him, right? Again, he's only 18, and I think we forget that sometimes. He is at the very beginning of his career. So, that's something that I expect him to add as the years go by. But for now, I think Marino is much more equipped to deal with those situations. And you're absolutely right about Zubimendi and Rice. I think Zubimendi got marshaled pretty well by Athletic, and I don't know what's happening with Rice. I wouldn't say he's been terrible.
No, I think he's just I think it's just a mixture of different factors. But I know he's been off. He's been a little off, especially the last game. Yeah. I don't think that's permanent or something to worry about. I think it's just a little bit of a dip in form for him, and it might have to do with his fitness.
Yeah, and you saw it against Forest last weekend where he started on the bench, probably because Arteta felt that maybe he had a lot of minutes in his legs, had been playing a lot recently, both for Arsenal and for England. Mm-hmm. I think it just happens sometimes with players where it's been a busy summer for them, and they're kind of they start the season a little slowly. But I also think that 7th-minute yellow card that I thought was pretty harsh. I think that also might have affected his performance. Yeah, I think he was mostly just trying not to get a second yellow for a lot of that match.
I think there's probably something to that, but that doesn't, that may excuse kind of like some of the lackadaisical tackling, but like misplacing passes and not his set piece delivery being a little off. Like I think that there are still question marks there, but at the end of the day, look, none of our starting players were able to get off the mark, either assists or goals. It ended up being both of our substitutes. So I don't really think you can just focus on the midfield or Rice or anyone in particular. I think if you look at that midfield three, I think Rice was definitely a weakest link. But again, I think that was partially because I think he's just having a little dip in form, getting back to fitness, and then partially just because Athletic Club were really, really good, I thought.
Yeah. I one of those players that didn't really affect the match in terms of goals and assists I really want to get to is Eberechi Eze. Mm-hmm. And I think after his performance at Forest, right, which I thought was great, he capped it off with a with an amazing assist. Maybe not amazing, but just very well
No,
taken.
no, that was I thought it was an amazing assist. Yeah,
Yeah.
he had to hit that right. He had to get it. First time. It was a very smart assist. It's not like an Ozil like level assist, sure, but like that's an assist that we don't see like someone like Martinelli make. I'm not trying to shit on Martinelli for obvious reasons today, which we'll get to, but that is an assist that he doesn't really make. I don't think.
Yeah, I will. I'll call it an elite assist. I think that was an elite assist, and good performance from him all in all. But against Athletic Club, I think he was a little quiet. Everyone's talking about him trying to go central, and Arteta like yelling at him that one time to kind of get back to the touchline. I don't think that's a talking point that a lot of people think it is, but. Just generally, I think he had some moments. I keep thinking back to, I think this was maybe the first major chance we created in the match where Madueke got to the byline and cut inside, or, kind of played a cutback really nicely. And Eza just didn't attack the ball like he should have. Mm-hmm. And an Athletic Club player ended up getting in front of him and kind of stopping him from, that would have almost assuredly been 1-0. So
yeah,
I keep thinking about that moment. Yeah.
I'm not worried though. Like those things. Like like I know people are kind of exploding on Twitter about it. Some of them but it's just like, come on, man. It's like it's a difficult away game in the Champions League. This is his first away Champions League game. Like
first Champions League game, full stop.
Well, yeah. Let alone an away game at a team that was very set up very well. That kind of did just sit back against like what we thought they were going to do early on. And we're very, very disciplined. So you know what? Like, give him a break. Give him a break.
Yeah. I'm not
context. Not you. You're doing great.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Twitter.
Thank you.
Twitter. Give him a break.
Yeah. I'm not super worried about him. I just think it was one of those things where it was a quiet game. And what I'll say is this: as fun of a signing as he is, and as lovely as it is a story to have him at the club, I do worry sometimes that excuse me, that any match in which he isn't magical, I think he's going to come in for a little too much scrutiny at times. And I think some people kind of attack the angle of, Arsenal paid $68 million for this player and he didn't have an assist or a goal today. What a waste of money. Yeah. And I think some people will attack the angle of, I want Eza to do this specific thing and play in this specific area, and Arteta's not doing it. Arteta's a fraud. Arteta out. Yeah. And this is kind of the thing. This was always going to happen, whether it was Eza or whether it was someone else, where once you start signing these flair players, these creative talents, and you add them to a team like this Arsenal side that's very physical, very athletic, very focused on organization and defense, as opposed to being an all-out attacking powerhouse, I think it's just another stick to beat Arteta with sometimes.
Yeah. Everyone wants a scapegoat, for things, but I didn't think I thought he had a good game. There was moments I even tweeted about it, like that he was absolutely excellent. I saw him struggling, but there were moments where he's just so difficult to press and deal with sometimes. He's just a very tricky player. And, he's not always going to score or assist. That's just not the way this game works. All right. There's an elite level player that can do stuff like that. You have your like Messi and Ronaldo, and like they can just do that like every single game. Maybe there's a world where he starts getting a little bit more consistent as time goes on. Again, though, that's why I come back to that context of it being his first Champions League game ever away at a very difficult side. You can considering that, he did really well, I thought.
Yeah, no, I thought he was pretty solid. It's just one of those days where just things didn't come off. And that applies to several different players in this match who I thought were all pretty impressive one way or another. So overall, not really worried about him. Another one of those players that kind of I think of is Gyokeres. And the funny thing is, right, I think this actually might have been Gyokeres' best game in an Arsenal shirt so far.
I thought he was great.
Yeah, and the ironic thing is, right, he doesn't have anything to show for it, and he's got, other games where he's, scored a brace and scored against Forest, but in this match, he came alive a little bit, right? It felt like kind of the first match where our midfield and our creative players finally started clicking with him on like a real consistent basis.
Yeah.
He had that ball where he was played in behind, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second because there's a really interesting conversation point that I want to hit there. But he had that ball where he's played in behind, didn't end up converting that. He had the diving header that I thought was really important, or sorry, not important necessarily, but really impressive.
Impressive, yeah.
He had another shot where it was another header. He was found in acres of space. I think he got caught in two minds and was trying to head it back across goal. And I forget what the fourth shot was, but he took 4 shots in the game.
Was it the one where it was kind of like one of those fox in the box kind of poachers chances, or was that a different one? Or did you already mention that one? He had some good chances at the end of the day, so agreed. I thought he had a great game, and it's one of these situations where you get worried every time he doesn't score in a game, and I think that's a little bit of trauma that we have with our strikers. You think back to like the Giroud days where we're trying to go for a title, and he goes 10 Premier League games without scoring a goal in a season where we should have won the league, and then. I think it also has to do with the pressure we know that he's going to face externally from the media and from people online and stuff. Every game that he doesn't score. That's why it was so important for him to just get off the bat right, early, so you can avoid those stupid memes, 007 or whatever the hell people are saying nowadays. I think that's kind of the concern, right? But I get where people are looking at him and they see like his goal scoring record in Portugal and are thinking he's going to maybe be able to reproduce that. And time's going to tell if he can. But if he doesn't, if we have a goal scorer who's scoring more than 20, if we have a center forward who's scoring more than 20, 25 goals a season, that's significant, especially when Havertz comes back and can rotate and then they come in and are scoring when Gyokeres can, or Jesus when he comes back hopefully soon, and he's scoring when the other ones can't. Like, even if you're not having a goal scorer that's scoring every single game, which is unrealistic unless your name's Haaland in the Premier League, and even look at him last season or season before, he can struggle too sometimes. Believe it or not, he's human. But you can't really put too much on this player to score every single week. He's doing a lot of other stuff. He's running these defenses ragged. He is. Yeah. He really is. He is difficult to deal with, and not in the same way that Lacazette or Giroud or who am I thinking of? Kai Havertz, where Lacazette almost acted as another midfielder, and he would play a lot of back to goal, and Giroud was this kind of big, albeit slow kind of player that was really effective, in the air and can score some good goals. He was a good goal scorer too, as much as people don't want to admit it. But this is a very different kind of center forward than we're used to. It is a very physical, intense center forward that we have in Gyokeres. Yeah. And I would, we look at the Martinelli goal, we look at the Trossard goal, and I wonder to myself, do those happen if Gyokeres hadn't been beating the shit out of these defenders for the last 60 or whatever minutes it was? And maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we're not able to open up enough because they're still, I think what he does is puts defenders out of their comfort zone. They don't want to be in those kind of battles like that sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, there's two scenarios that defenders don't want to be. They don't want to be with these like fast, tricky attackers like Isak, right? They don't like that. But they also don't like to get the shit kicked out of them. They're usually good at like controlling the situation. Like, look at Saliba, for example. He doesn't get bullied very often. So when they're getting bullied, that's not something they're used to. They're not used to being able to be physically met, when they're going for a shoulder-to-shoulder challenge with an attacker to end up on the floor. Yeah. They're not. That's not something they're used to. So there's something to that.
Yeah, and I I think he like you said, right? He provides a lot more than just the conversion, the shot conversion. But I will say on that point, I think people are nervous about it just because, you know, we've we've had a couple of years in the bank now of players missing these crazy clear cut chances, right? I don't think that's the case with Gyokeres. I think this is very much like a variance match, and him just I still don't think he's 100% fit.
When you say variance, what do you mean by variance match?
So, like, you know, I don't know the exact XG values of the chances he had. Hold on, let me look this up, right? But basically, what I'm saying is
the XG value music up that we'll put in terms.
Yeah, like, you know, it not to. I just think it's one of those things where if you give Gyokeres those 4 chances again, I think he'll put one of them back in the net, right? And I think it's just one of those things where he's getting up to speed, he's, you know, getting his fitness back, and again, maybe it wasn't one of those days for him. Here we go. He had an expected goals total of 0.45.
Okay, so he probably shouldn't have scored then.
Yeah, it's basically like a 50-50 chance. So if you play that game again,
he might and flip a coin.
Yeah, and you give him one of those chances, he probably scores.
So you flip a coin that's slightly weighted against him scoring.
Yeah, but you know he took 4 shots in this game, which I think is highly encouraging, right? And if you just go back to the beginning of the season a couple weeks ago, I think he had 1 shot in our first game. I think he had 3 against Forest. So it's building up, right? And if you can give Victor Gyokeres, let's say 4 to 6 shots in a game, on a consistent basis, I think you're going to be just fine, right?
Yeah. I really wish Odegaard was not injured. I really want to see they really need game time together. Odegaard and Gyokeres need game time together.
Him and Saka too,
or him and Rice even. You know, I think Rice being out of the last game also was a little bit of a detriment because you know he does favor that left hand side a lot, and you know obviously Rice kind of takes that position. So I feel like, you know, if Calafiori is not coming and doing the overlap thing, then it has to be Rice. And if Rice kind of out of his game a little bit, like he has been the last game, you know, I feel like once that partnership develops a little bit more, we're going to see a little bit more. But I get what you're saying about the variance. So, you know, I think in a world where, first of all, at home, we're going to be getting a lot more chances than that. In the league, at home, we're going to be getting a lot more chances than that. This was a very slow paced game too. Very stop start. Exactly what I was about to say. I was going to say also the pace of the games. There's going to be times where it's a lot more controlled, and we're going to be able to be a lot more penetrative. Here we couldn't get into a rhythm because it kept going and stopping and stopping and going, and it was this. It was almost in like slow motion. It felt like in many instances, and I think that our players don't like that. We like to be in control and moving and pressing and things like that. We don't like these like. It's okay if the game slows down and they park the bus and we have to try to kind of break around it. But when they're winning, you know, when they're pressing successfully and they're winning the ball back and we're not able to get to string a bunch of passes together, that really frustrates us. And you saw that against Athletic.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I just think I think other matches you're going to find that, again, the pace isn't stop-start. It's not going to feel like a derby like it did for some reason against Athletic Club. So you're not going to have fouls every 35 seconds, and you're going to be able to rack up more chances, sustain more waves of pressure, and ultimately, you know, create more chances for your star striker. But even in addition to that, you know, without him scoring goals, I think just his presence on the pitch and his willingness to continue to make those runs in behind and continue to try to stretch the pitch, you know, I feel like we just have more space generally when we play, and that's because teams are now respecting our pace and behind. Mm-hmm. You kind of think back to the Arsenal teams of yesteryear, where it's Saka, Havertz, maybe Martinelli. A lot of the time it was Trossard, right? So take that front three: Saka, Havertz, Trossard. Mm-hmm. Where's the pace and behind? You know?
Yeah.
Maybe
100%.
Havertz occasionally, right? Maybe Trossard if you play the ball just right, but you've got to be close to goal. So, having Gyokeres and having Madueke as well in that regard, I think just forces defenders to pay that much more attention to him. There are times, during a lot of the match where Gyokeres had 2 defenders on him, which I think just is a credit to the respect that he demands on the pitch. So, even if he doesn't score a goal, even if he doesn't have an assist, I still think he impacts the game in that way. So, yeah, he's got plenty of credit in the bank with me for the time being. But there was one thing I wanted to hit on with regard to Gyokeres, which is the Henry analysis of that one chance.
Yeah, is he the one saying that he needs to score that one where he kind of kicked the ball out too far and he should have cut in and it gave time for the defender to come back and get it? That one?
Yeah, exactly. That's the one.
You know what? I'm going to be honest. I don't think he's right there. Far be it from me to tell Thierry Henry that how to be a striker, but I think that I don't know. What do you think, Sham?
I think Henry is the perfect example of why the best athletes are very often not great analysts of the game that they play, of the sport that they play, right? Because you have Henry.
Just look at every Man United player ever.
Yeah, yeah. Just look at class of '92.
Yeah, Carrick and who else is there?
They're all doing podcasts. They're shooting the shit in nice, cozy little studios, and they don't really care what they're talking about.
Gary Neville.
Yeah. Gary Neville's just getting paid to drive narratives on Sky Sports. But yeah, you have Henry looking at these situations kind of in his own shoes and not really having that. I'm going to use a phrase that George from the Cannon Pod uses a lot. That technical empathy that a lot of people have, or that a lot of analysts have, where they think about the player themselves. Henry looks at that chance and he's like, "Oh, well, if I was Gyokeres, I would cut in," because that's what Thierry Henry would do, right? Because Thierry Henry has that skill level, has that pace, and he very clearly did not have the greatest coaching career of all time, right? Because I think it's that same thing where he sees players try to do things and he's like, well, I could do it, so why can't you do it? I just don't think he's good at putting himself in those shoes. And you see it across sports, right? That's why Tom Brady is not everybody's favorite color commentator right now.
No. Right.
Whereas Tony Romo, who never won a Super Bowl, thankfully, in his life, is actually like a really interesting guy to listen to when he breaks down the game. That's why, Michael Jordan couldn't run a basketball team to save his life and has kind of like stepped back a little bit, at least, from recruitment decisions. So, I think the very greatest athletes in their sports have a hard time relating to other players and their skill levels. And that's kind of what this was to me. I think it was just Henry looking at where Gyokeres was and inserting himself into that situation and not understanding why Gyokeres couldn't do a thing that only Thierry Henry really could do. So yeah, and just kind of a point generally on Henry as a pundit, I think he engages a lot in absolutism, and I'm not the biggest fan of it, with all due respect to him. I think he does a lot of even before this segment, earlier on in that show, he said something to the effect of no, Arsenal have to win this season. They have to win something.
They have to win a trophy, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, it can't be the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup. And then Carragher's like, oh, so if they don't win anything, then Arteta has to go, no, I'm not saying that, but they have to win something.
You know what? It's an interesting point that you bring that up, and I've had this thought, and it's been pissing me off for a while. Okay, it's like there's that. It's the soundbite, right? And it goes, and the logic is Arsenal need to do X this season, but there's really no or else what. What happens if Arsenal don't win, this season? Is it really that we get rid of Arteta? Is that really what you think should happen? Look at the way this team's playing. Look at what we have right now. Look how difficult it is to win anything in this league. Look how difficult it is to win anything in Europe. Is it really Arteta out? No. So then, okay, yes, what you really should be saying is, listen, Arteta, we should win something this season. We should. We are good enough to win something this season. All right? But the way that the world works, and the way that the sport works, and the way this league works, and the way Europe works, that's not always possible. As good as you are, and as hard as you try, it sometimes just doesn't work out for you. And it sucks. I feel like if we hadn't finished second the last how many seasons, the pressure would not be on as much. I know that for a fact. So I get that, and I do understand where everyone's coming from and why you would say we need to win something based off of the recruitment that we did and things like that. But we're not the only one that's strengthened. We're not. There's other teams that strengthen as well, and they're trying to win the same things we are. So should we win something? Yeah, we're good enough, and we've strengthened. We're better than we were last season, and we should have won something last season too. But it doesn't always work out that way. So again, we need to win something. No, we should. I hope we do. We're going to try, but there's no recourse if we don't.
I just think it's too black and white.
Right.
And, you and I, especially because of what we do for day jobs, we've been trained to think very much in the gray and think very much about how things could go wrong. And sure, there is a world where we don't win anything, and it's because Arteta made a series of really ridiculous, decisions in different matches, or our recruitment between now and the end of the season proves to be actually terrible, right? There are worlds where that is the case, but there are also worlds where we get 95 points and Liverpool win every game this season, right? There are worlds where we are statistically the best team in the Champions League, but Lamine Yamal has, a season that seals him in as a Ballon d'Or winner, right? We could do everything right, and things could go wrong, and I just don't think people realize that is a very strong possibility at this level of the game, right? You could do everything right, but Liverpool appear to be on a hot streak of scoring goals in match-winning goals in stoppage time right now. They also appear to be on a hot streak of playing teams exactly when their best players are out for just a match or two, right? So, it's just some teams have the luck they need and some teams don't, and unfortunately that's a really important part of the match. And I think some people just either can't or won't come to terms with the fact that a lot of whether or not you win a trophy in elite sports is not up to you. And you just have to be in the conversation, hope things shake out your way, and hope that you don't blow it in critical moments.
Right, and that goes back 100%, and that goes back to what we said earlier in this podcast, that we cannot focus on Liverpool. For many reasons involving our hearts and involving how frustrating this team is, we just got to make sure Arsenal just got to go and do it every single week. That's all they can do. Like, what Arteta said, winning trophies is about being in the right moment in the right place. Yeah. All right, and he said, he was talking about Liverpool, saying, look, they won the league with less points than we had the last two seasons, and he got a lot of stick for that. But he's kind of getting at what we're talking about here. It's that it's so difficult to win this league, and that even if and it can be a little bit random sometimes. Right place, right time, wrong place, wrong time, right place, wrong time, wrong time, right place, whatever. Like whatever kind of permutation you want to come up with, the stars need to align to win this league. All right? And that's it. That's really all there is to it. It's one of the hardest things in sports to win the Premier League, I would say. Yeah, as much as it's also as hard to win the Champions League, but these kind of upper echelons of football trophies, they're very difficult. They're very difficult. It's like, what do you mean we need to win the league? What do you even need? Yeah. What? How do you just? Let's win the league. Sure, Henry. Okay, got it.
It's not a conversation that exists in reality, and also it just feels like people are trying to give themselves an excuse or like set themselves up to spend next summer making fun of Arsenal without retribution if we don't win anything. Like,
That's
like
funny.
Liverpool have been in 10 title races since the beginning of the Klopp era. How many Premier Leagues have they won? 2. I don't remember 8 summers in which we sat around and talked about how stupid and feckless and useless Liverpool were. No, we were like, oh wow, the Guardiola City's amazing, best team of all time, right? That's what we did. So I don't understand if we lose out to Liverpool this season, and it's not because we just didn't deserve to be in the running for the title. I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh, well, clearly Arsenal wasted all their money. I'm going to sit there and say, wow, Liverpool have built an amazing team, right? And Isak probably scored 30 goals in the Premier League, and Slot is a great manager who deserves a lot of credit for what he's done here, right? I just think it just feels a little bad faith at times. And that's really what bugs me about it, because like I think people are just trying to get Arsenal fans to like co-sign whatever nonsense they want to spout next summer. And
and I know, look, so going back, I thought Gyokeres was good.
yeah,
I know that I don't care about that particular play that Henry highlighted, and sure, if we go 1-0 up, it's a different game. Fine. I mean, I don't really know. In that same token, why don't you highlight some of our defensive work that we did really, really well and say, hey, if we don't make that defensive block, it's 1-0, and that's a whole different game. So like, you could point to different moments, that people do well too, to show look how good the team was, rather than pointing out something negative about Gyokeres, which is, I get, it's not necessarily true, but I'll defer to Henry as to what a striker should do. I will say that I thought, again, Mascara, I don't know how we got that guy for 13 million.
steal.
And unreal. That guy's unreal. I don't. It's amazing. He's an amazing player. He's so calm, cool, and collected. He's very technically gifted. I'm very, very assured with him back there. Gabriel, is a little bit of a spark plug sometimes, but he's amazing. Calafiori, I thought, was really, really good. I thought he had some good moments where he loves defending. This guy loves defending. Not always the best 1v1, but going forward, I think he's or the other way around. He's very good. He is pretty good 1v1, I think, but I don't think he's like, it's not like his strong suit. I think he's better at like kind of going forward and like creating and like causing problems going forward. But he's a great defender and he loves defending. Timber is obviously, just silently one of the best players in the Premier League the last 2 seasons, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And again, he keeps showing it week in and week out. He's just so good. I thought it was good to see Norgard back. I thought, this is it's a big deal that he's back in the fray, and especially to give Zubamendi some rest. I think that's going to be important. And there were some interesting moments. I don't know if you realized, like when he came on, where he was kind of like going into the soccer role. He was like turning into a right wing.
Yeah, he was playing right wing for a second.
Yeah, and it was like, what the hell? What's going on?
He also looked way more comfortable there than I would have expected.
Yeah, he really did. It was like, all right, man. All right, buddy, just coming back from injury. You figure he's just going to sit and going to do his job silently, but no, he's like, I'm going to go on an adventure and play right wing. All right, Norgard, sure, go for it, man.
Yeah, he was like kind of like dancing over the ball a little bit, like just outside of the penalty area on the right flank, and I was like, okay, twinkle toes, like who's this guy?
Yeah, and then I guess we should probably talk about the substitutes.
Yeah, well, so before we get to the 2 super subs, I because Hincapié made his debut, I wanted to ask what'd you made of him?
I thought he was, look, man, another one that likes to defend and is like, just what a pain in the ass it's going to be to play against this guy. He came in and like just right away just started crunching tackles, there was a couple moments where he got into it on that, like towards our left, like on our left side,
Yeah.
by our corner flag, and he just put his leg in, and then there was like a throw in, and he was like just getting involved, and like that's what I wanted to see, and I thought he looked great. So I'm really excited to see some more from him. What did you think?
He seems like a psycho in the best
Yes,
way possible.
insane. I don't want to go. He seems like he would just be a pain in the ass.
Like I loved he was like getting stuck in, and like he'd like go in for a tackle, go to ground, and then he'd pop up and he'd just start like hyping himself up and like talking to himself, like just like jumping, like yeah, like let's go, like stuff like that. Or I'll just pretend that's what he was saying, right?
Yeah.
But like
Vamos!
he he felt a lot like a safety that had just like made a sack, or not a safety, but he felt like a lot like a defensive lineman that had just made a sack.
Yeah.
Where
Or they start like pumping their arms and yeah.
they're like yelling at nobody. Like it felt a lot like that, and I don't know how Arteta finds these guys who just love defending more than they love life itself. But
He said, didn't he quoted talking about these players love defending. I don't know if it was post match here or it was post match in the last game. Do you remember him saying that?
A little. I think he might have said that.
Yeah. Was it this match? I'm looking it up right now. Great content here. They have a love of defending. It was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another clean sheet. It's 18 goals in 25 Champions League games Arsenal have conceded under your management. And a word for Christian Mosquera, who was outstanding again tonight. Such a young man coming in and making his Champions League debut.
Yeah, I think the level of commitment and love for defending that the boys are putting, it's spectacular. And they do it especially when the situations are very critical, because especially the way we play, there are quite a lot of open spaces. But yeah, they have the heart, they have the understanding, and hopefully we can build from that, because they have the understanding, and hopefully we can build from that, because that helps you to win a lot of games.
Yeah, so that was TNT that posted that. So, yeah, look, they love to defend, and here we are. Yeah. So, he's definitely seems to be one of those kind of players that loves to defend. Mosquera, like you mentioned, another player, loves to defend. So
Gabriel, we know, loves to defend. Saliba,
yeah. Well,
thing.
yeah. Loves to defend. We talked about Calafiori, loves to defend. Saka loves to defend.
Timber.
Yeah. What?
But Timber
loves to defend. And you know, it's amazing because holy crap! Imagine this defense. And now I don't know, because like I'm trying to think of like a Wenger attack with like this defense, like what we could have done with that. Like imagine when we were clamoring for defenders, when it was like Mustafi and Socrates, and we didn't have a defensive midfielder for like 8 fucking years. You know,
or
like
even like further back. Like I think about the days of like Schillaci and Senderos and Silvestre, and there's one other guy. Like there was a period of time where Gallus was our best defender. Yeah. And he wasn't particularly great. Like, yeah, that is a thing. That is a fact of the Wenger era that I never understood, which was just like you could have gone and gotten, you know, a top 20 defender in the world, top 20 center back in the world, and we would have been okay. Like when we signed Senya, I was like, get 3 more of that guy.
Yeah, or one DM, DM. For a year, anyway. Don't get me started.
You couldn't get Jan and Villa over the line.
Whatever, you couldn't get one DM. We had. Anyway, point is, love defending. I love this that they love defending. I personally love watching defenders. You know that's my like. I love watching attack and stuff, but I love just like those battles in the back, like that other people when they're watching the game maybe not like. I love that. So. I love watching this team defend because it's really amazing, and they're so coordinated and they're so composed. And these teams, it's so interesting because when you watch amazing teams play against us, you think to yourself, "Oh, they're having a bad day." Right? They don't look like they're playing very well. And then I think some fans even rationalize our wins sometimes, being like, "Okay, well, you know, if they were on top of their game, like I think they would have done a lot better." That's what good defending does. You take and you see these stats in basketball where you would see a stat about how many baskets a player would make or how many rebounds they would make or how many shots they would take, and then you would look at defensive stats that show how many under that like norm that he was like kind of silenced to, right? Yeah. And that's the kind of case when you're looking at the stats that teams normally put up in the Premier League and again and generally they do way worse when they play us. Because we are good at defending and putting them off and disrupting their game plan and making them play the way we want to play. And it's subtle sometimes, and it's not sexy or exciting, but it really is a change, and it's really impressive how we do that consistently.
Yeah, no, I think it's underrated how fun it is to watch us defend. Like, I'm looking forward to Sunday, not just in terms of what we might be able to do against City's defense, but I love watching Saliba and Gabriel battle against Haaland and the other best strikers in the world. Yeah,
awesome. It's so much fun.
It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of history there. I think it's a big part of the narrative of the game, and yeah. So, if people don't enjoy that, I just don't think they're taking advantage of all the sport has to offer. But Let's hit the super subs real quick, and by super subs, obviously we mean Trossard and Martinelli. I'm going to be quite honest with you. When Arteta subbed off Gyokeres and Eze for Trossard and Martinelli over the span of a few minutes, I was very ready to crash out.
Yeah.
Because I was just sitting there what are you doing? Like, why? Gyokeres might have been our best player. Why are you taking him off the pitch? And then 36 seconds after Martinelli came on, he was in on goal and he scored to make it 1-0. And I was sitting there just like, all right, cool. This is why he's the manager. Fair play.
Yeah.
I think there's a James Benge tweet that really sums us up better than I could, which is he said something to the effect of, last year those Martinelli and Trossard subs would have been Sterling and Butler away Adeji.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And I think that says it all in terms of kind of what their role in the squad is and how important they can still be for us. And, we spent a lot of time knocking Martinelli here. Trossard and Martinelli, full disclosure, are players I would have been fine with selling this past summer. And, they came on and they really saved the match for us, and they got us the points. And, I just think, again, I've said this so many times now, squad depth is going to be a major theme of this season. And I think we're starting to learn about the roles that people can have in this team. So, I mean, what did you make of their performances? And, do you think like this super sub role is something that we should expect from them? Or, do you think maybe this means that they should have a higher chance of starting matches moving forward?
I think that it goes to show two things. Mm-hmm. First, my gut was right in that they are excellent in that sub role. That Martinelli's shown, here. Let me back up a little bit because I'm in two minds actually now that I'm thinking about it. I'm going to start with what I was thinking about initially, and then as I was thinking that, I'll kind of give you what my other thought is on it. So first, I think, yes, I think it goes to show how much our depth's increased over last season, and that I think that they can absolutely play that super sub role and play it very well. We already know Trossard can do it, and we know Martinelli. We know he has certain things in our locker. By the way, him finally looking up and not dribbling at his feet, and he finally scores a goal. I don't think that's a coincidence. He needs to look up more when he dribbles. He needs to get better at that. He's still a young player, so there's still room for improvement always, I think. I think, he can add more dimensions to his game, which is what he needs to do. What we saw from him then was amazing, and when it works, it's great. The problem is when he's facing up defenses that are parking the bus and that he can't offer anything and can't break down opposition defenses, or he's staring at his feet and dribbling in the blind alleys. Those kind of breakaway goals that we've seen like 2 or 3 times already from him is not the things that that's not what caused me. Knowing that he could do that was not the reason why I went, ugh, when I saw Martinelli coming on. All right, it wasn't. All right, really, if I thought the entire thought out, it would have been, oh God, Martinelli's coming on. I hope he can at least do the thing that he does well, because if he's not doing that, there's a lot that he's not doing. So that's kind of the first token that the thought that I had, and then the thought that I had that came up was when about your question about would it be a starter. And then I'm thinking, okay, there needs to be. We're saying that Martinelli needs to improve. We're saying that he needs to get better. He needs to add more dimensions. I say we. It's like the royal we. I think he needs to get better. I think he needs to add more dimensions to his game. All right. There needs to be a catalyst for that to happen. Okay. Maybe the thought of losing your position on this team after all the years of being so certain that you were going to have some kind of a role, at least, between you and Trossard, it wasn't that much of a big deal. Now, you have Eze that can play there. You have Trossard that can play there. You Madueke in a pinch can play there if need be. When Gabriel Jesus comes back, he can play there. Even Gyokeres in a pinch can play that left wing maybe, but obviously less so. So and not only that, you have a player like Eze who the fans are really behind as wanting to be the starter. He's never really had that at Arsenal. So perhaps that, if nothing else, was a catalyst for change to get him to develop a little bit more, which is something I've seen him making the same mistakes, like blind alleys, dribbling with your eyes down and not looking up where you're going and not making sure you're reading the box correctly. Maybe this is what does it.
Yeah.
And maybe we start to see him progress as a player. And if that's the case, then yes, maybe there's a world where there's games where he'll start over Eze, over Trossard. Because I think there's games like that anyway, but maybe this will finally allow him to break out of his shell, because nothing was working before, it seemed. It was stagnation, in some cases regression. Perhaps this was a kick in the ass that's going to, I hope, push him to fulfill the potential we all know he has.
Yeah, I'm also caught in two minds about it, right? Because on the one hand, I'll backtrack a little bit. The goal, right? We've seen Martinelli do that several times now. He scored that goal basically away at Real Madrid, at Chelsea years ago, at Sevilla, and that I knew he could do. As soon as he was put in on goal by Trossard like that, I was pretty confident that he was going to put that ball away, right? Because I don't think it was his best finish, but he's pretty smart about hitting the ball low and hard, which is a pain for the goalkeepers to deal with. But I think the part that showed to me that he might have finally started to kind of turn it around and feel the fire under his ass a little bit is when he dribbled to the byline, and instead of just kind of holding onto the ball, not really knowing what to do with it, he stood on it for a second and then played a pass into Trossard for the assist for the second goal. And that's where I was saying they're just like, okay, we have something here, right? He's remembered what to do with the ball for the final action, right? So, funny how that happens when you bring in players who are taking his spot away from him. So, on the one hand, right, I think for the time being, this is Martinelli and Trossard's roles in the squad, which is finishers, as Arteta called them, which is apparently a term that people seem to have a problem with. I don't know why, but these are guys who come in and change the game state at the back end of the match, and that's it's very purposeful. And again, Arteta is a guy who several players have come out and said, he knows what's going to happen. Right, Arteta will tell us this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then you do this, and then that will happen, and then you do this, right? And so I think for Arteta, it's very foreseeable that he's like, okay, well, so we're going to play the match like this, the first 60 to 70 minutes, and they're going to respond like this, and yada yada. And Gyokeres and Madueke and Eza are going to run these guys ragged at the back, and then what we're going to do is 63, 68 minutes, whatever, right? I'm going to take a couple of you guys off, and I'm going to put on Trossard and Martinelli. And what you do, right, you go from Gyokeres being the guy who... Because basically it's like a balancing, right? You have Gyokeres and you have Eza, right? So you've got one guy who's kind of more of the creative type, who floats, and who's, not like... How do I put this? He's someone you pass the ball to their feet, right? And then Gyokeres is the guy that you pass the ball ahead of, and he's running the ball, and he's running in behind the defense, right? What you've done by swapping out Trossard and Martinelli is you've switched those roles, and you've switched them in terms of like what the athletic club players are specifically defending against, right? So you've spent 65-ish minutes defending against Gyokeres, who's running it behind you. Now you're up against Trossard, who's going to drop deep and pick up the ball, right? And he's going to try to do something on the ball primarily. And now you've been defending against Eza, who's going to receive the ball to feet and then try to beat you, right? And now you're defending against Martinelli, who's just going to run in behind you repeatedly for the last 30 minutes of the game, right? So it's a really annoying switcheroo for the defense to deal with, and it's a very clever usage of the players. And again, it's just, I think people think way too much in terms of starters and subs. Starters and subs. You're important and you're not, basically. But I think the way Arteta thinks about the players, that they're all important. They all have a role to play. Obviously, Saka and Rice and Saliba and Odegaard and these guys have bigger roles to play. But Martinelli and Trossard, I think, are showing that they can also come on and serve a purpose for this team, and that's nothing to sniff at.
Yeah, and then going back to what you were saying about the, Eze and Martinelli and the kind of interplay about how Arteta can use them to effectuate different kind of game plans even within a match. It goes back to what I was saying. Now add the fact that you've been beat up by Gyokeres for 75 minutes. And like how tired you are now and physically exhausted and beat up, and now you have a fresh leg Martinelli coming on that you have to try to beat, from a Calafiori chip or a David Raya throw out of nowhere, in this 80th minute. Like this is impact that you can have in a game that maybe Gyokeres doesn't score, but he in some way contributes to that goal because of what he did for the entire match leading up to that. And it's not something that you can really have a stat for. It's just something that, like, if you play a sport, like, that's how it works sometimes.
Yeah. And you saw it for both goals, right? Where, again, kind of like the juxtaposition of Gyokeres and Eza to Trossard Martinelli. For the first goal, you had Trossard dropping in for the pass, and then he just kind of plays the ball over the top. And then you have Martinelli sprinting in, and his defender's like, oh shit, I have to run after this guy, right? And then for the second goal, Martinelli's the one going to the byline, right? Whereas normally it's Gyokeres just sprinting right at goal. But Martinelli is running to the byline, and Trossard is kind of snuck in right near the penalty area, where, the other way around, the dynamic is kind of Eza's on the wing, and he's trying to play the ball kind of up the pitch to Gyokeres.
Right.
So yeah, I just think I say all that to say, Arteta, the number one job of a manager is to make the best use possible of their resources. And while most of us, myself included, were momentarily irked by the fact that the players that we liked were coming off, and the players that maybe we're a little tired of were coming on, Arteta used those players correctly and got the win at the end of the day. And that's all you can ask for out of a manager.
Agreed.
Yeah. And also, just kind of as a last point on this before we get to City, I just really loved how the team kind of celebrated Martinelli's goal, because, Rice and Gabriel, we know, are very online guys. Calafiori to an extent as well. But I'm sure all the players are aware that Martinelli isn't exactly in the good graces of, Arsenal fans or maybe the footballing world generally. So I think they all recognize that as
Fiore pointing, right? He was pointing his name, and it was like that was a really nice moment, and it was kind of like, all right, Martinelli, all right, you know what? Yeah. Touche.
You still have the streets at London Colney, so
yeah. Look, you know what, bud? You keep doing that, forget it.
Yeah.
Fine.
So hopefully that's the.
If Martinelli, I'll do this right now. If Martinelli scores 15 goals across all competitions, I'll buy a jersey. How about that, Martinelli?
15.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Do you think he'll get enough chances to do that?
15 goals or 15 goals and assists?
15 goals and assists.
I think he could do that. He's already at 2.
Yeah. I'll be happy to do that. 15 goals and assists for someone who's not starting is what you need in a depth player to win the league and the Champions League and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If he can do that, I'll buy it.
That's a good point. If Martinelli gets 15 goals or assists in the season, or 15 goals and assists in the season, off the bench primarily, you have to imagine that's a successful season.
Yes, correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's a very successful season for someone who
not just for him, but like for that means that Arsenal had a successful season.
Correct. That means that he had 15 goal involvements off the bench, or even as maybe if he started some games.
In addition to whatever Gyokeres and Madueke and Saka and Eze and Odegaard and Havertz and Rice do.
Correct. I'm putting it to him. Get 15 goals and assists this season. If he can get 15 goals and assists this season, I think that's an amazing season for Martinelli and that'll show why. That being said, assuming that Eze as a starter is doing equally as well, that'll show why we've been asking for someone on top of him in that position. All right, if he can make that super sub position his. Or what? Alternatively, he develops in a way that makes it. I don't really care if it's Eze or Martinelli starting. Whoever's scoring and assisting and making the best chance for us to win. I don't have allegiance to one particular player over another. I have allegiance to Arsenal. So if whoever's the best player for that position, if Martinelli can take that spot back, go for it, man. I'll buy the jersey. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, if he takes a spot back, it means that he's better than Eze and Madueke and the rest. So,
which I'm okay with. I don't care.
Yeah.
I know some fans will not like that because they like to be right more than watch Arsenal win, but that's not me. I want to see us win, and if it means Martinelli's starting every single game this season, I'm totally okay with it if he's actually doing well.
Yep. No, agreed. All right, let's hit City real quick because I know we're in the second quarter of this Bills-Dolphins game.
Yeah, 7-7.
So 7-7, yeah. So Manchester City come to the Emirates on Sunday.
Yeah.
And they've had, if I were a City fan, I would say they've had a very concerning start to the season, right? Because they've looked, how do I put it? They brought in several new players. They brought in Tijani Reinders, Ryan Cherky, who I think is out for a match because of a knee injury. They just signed 2 new keepers in James Trafford and Gianluigi Donnarumma. Actually, I'm not sure if his first name's Gianluigi, but Donnarumma, right? And they've also they brought another attacking player, but I forget who. But the point is, not a crazy window from them, which I kind of expected them to I thought they were going to sign Rodrigo, but they didn't. But yeah, basically what I've seen of City so far, they lost to Spurs. They lost to Bournemouth as well, wasn't it? They lost to, I think it was Spurs and Bournemouth that they lost to.
Yeah, they beat United. Of course, they beat United, of course.
Yeah. No, they United looked pathetic against them. But outside of the United game, and actually even including the United game, they've been very vulnerable defensively. And I think if it weren't for the fact that Haaland has been off to a red-hot start to begin the season, I do think City would legitimately be in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I think Reinders has had some good moments, but there's not really anyone in the rest of that team who really seems capable of dragging them through this. So we'll see. That being said, right, it's a City Arsenal match. They don't like us. We don't like them. I wouldn't be shocked if they, turned the performance levels up to a 10 against us, and Haaland had his best game of the season. Rodri tried to play his best game of the season, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. But the point is, I think they are there to be gotten at. I think they are very lightweight outside of Haaland and a couple of their defensive players. And I honestly think they're going to be very... what's what I'm looking for here?
They're for the taking.
They're for the taking. I was going to say they're not press resistant, or not as press resistant as they used to be, because they've gotten rid of Ederson, and they now have two goalkeepers who, aren't as good with their feet as the likes of Ederson and Alisson and Raya and kind of your quote unquote modern goalkeeper. Mm-hmm. They've now gotten two very good shot stoppers who aren't necessarily number 10s on the ball, right? Yeah. To use that phrase that Klopp coined. So I say all that to say I think it's going to be a really interesting match. I think this is going to be a very different City side that we're up against. And honestly, I do like our odds as long as we can keep Saliba and or as long as Saliba and Gabriel can keep Haaland quiet.
Do you think Saliba's going to play, or do you think Mosquera's going to start?
I think we're going to start Saliba, honestly. Okay. Yeah, maybe he's coming in a little cold, but also,
Do you start? I don't know. There's an argument that Mosquera is like on form right now, but I guess there's the counter argument is you don't want to mess that up by starting, by throwing him into a game like this. It's a big test, but he had Liverpool at Anfield. Why can't he do Man City?
I think Haaland is a different level of challenge for a player like Mosquera. And that's not just, I don't think Mosquera would get burned Rob Holding style by Haaland, but I just think that you want two guys who know each other, right, as well as Saliba and Gabriel do. Two guys who have an established track record at the top level. Mm-hmm. And have an established track record against Erling Haaland.
True.
I think in practice or in training this week, or at least for the next few days, I think they're going to be running drills like crazy where Gyokeres plays plays Haaland in training. And
that's so funny to think about.
Yeah. I can just imagine.
They should give him a big wig in training. Arteta did some weird shit, like playing like You Never Walk Alone. Maybe they dress him up like Haaland and they put him in a City kit.
Yeah, and just have him run at Saliba and Gabriel for 30 minutes.
That's so funny.
Or an hour. Yeah, I think I would go with Saliba, and then obviously Ryan goal, Gabriel next to Saliba. I think I'd do Timber right back.
We don't really have a choice. Well, maybe is White back? No, he's injured still, isn't he?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about White. I mean, he missed.
Even if he's not injured, I'd play Timber.
Yeah. Even if he's available for the game, I think this is a big ask to throw White into the team. But I'd go Timber right back. I think I'd go with Calafiori left back, and I feel like they're probably going to start like Doku or Savinho on the right to deal with Calafiori.
I think Doku is going to be their right. I think really on the right. I was thinking,
or maybe Doku stays on the left.
Or maybe Silva on the right.
Silva on the right?
Yeah, I was thinking Doku. I wrote it down. Doku, Foden, Rainiers, Silva is like a front four with Haaland up top, and then Rodri, Ake on the left wing. Mm-hmm. Vardiol, Diaz, Kushyanov, and Donnarumma. Is that? Mm-hmm.
I think the City lineup is going to be Donnarumma. They really don't have a right back, do they? Yeah, Donnarumma.
No. Oh, is it Kushyanov or whatever his name is?
Donnarumma, Kusanov. Yeah, probably Diaz, Ake.
Yep.
Who's playing left back for them?
I would say Ake would be playing left back, and then Gvardiol is going to be playing that left side.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. So that back four, I think Rodri's going to start.
Yep. And then I think like an 8 and a 10, like an 8, and then the right sided 8, like a Foden, and then Raniers, and then Doku, Silva, Holland. Doku on the left, Silva on the right, Holland up top.
I think they're going to play a midfield three of Rodri, Silva, and Reinders.
Okay.
And then the front three, I don't know. I feel like the front three is going to be something like Savinho, Holland, and then left wing is going to be one of Doku and Is Marmoush available or no?
So I don't know. Let me Google this. Hold on.
Hold on.
Because I want to see who's injured for City. I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
Because when I wrote this down, I looked up who was injured.
Marmoush picked up an injury for when he was playing for Egypt last week.
Okay, so he's out.
But I'm not sure how long he's out for. Let's see what the lineups were today. He wasn't on the bench.
Marmoush, Ryan At-Nouri, Ryan Cherki, John Stones will be out for the Manchester derby, if not longer. This was during the derby. Omar's injured from Egypt. Stones is a doubt. At-Nouri's ankle injury is reported going to keep him out for 5 weeks, so he's out. Gvardiol returned to the starting lineup game week 4. Ake, so I think he would pick Ake over O'Reilly.
Yeah.
At left back, because I think we're going to want one of the important things that I think that City are going to need to do against us, and really any team, and it's something that they haven't really had to focus on, and people don't really talk about it too much. You have to consider size matchups with Arsenal now, because we're just so big. So I think when they drop O'Reilly and put Doku or Ake on the left, it gives them a little bit more size to deal with us potentially. So I think that's something to deal with. Especially, I think he's a good aerial presence, and I think that we're going to need that for set pieces. Is going to be a big one this game, I think. So I think Ake on the left wing is going to be a little bit more strategically beneficial for Pep. And then I don't know. Well, so let me put it this way: we don't know if Stones is going to be fit. If Stones is fit, then I think Diaz and Stones at center back, because that's that height that we're talking about, the physicality. I think this is a different kind of Pep side now, and I think they're going to try to battle us. That's that's something that they're going to do. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean the thing about Pep City is it can go a bunch of different ways, but I do think kind of the general thing is I think we're going to do pretty well in terms of the physical matchup against them this time around.
Yeah.
And I do think we kind of had the element of surprise because Saka may or may not be back for this match. Right? Yeah.
Or on the bench. Seeing him on the bench will kind of,
I think if he's back, he's on the bench.
Yeah.
To be honest, because I think Madueke has been too good to just drop suddenly.
Right.
And I don't think Saka's going to be ready for a full hour at high intensity against City.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I feel confident. I think the key thing really is keeping Holland quiet and shutting off that service to him.
Yeah.
So
which we do pretty well historically.
Yeah. Well, like he scored a couple against more than a couple. He scored a few against us. I think the last few games we played against City, we've done a good job of keeping him quiet. And that's why I'd go for a midfield of Zubimendi and Rice. If Arteta wants to play Marino, if Odegaard's not available and Arteta wants to play Marino in this game, I'm not mad at it. But also, I think there's an argument for Nwaneri to start at that right A position. We'll see. But that's why I want to play Timber at right back, because I feel like he's going to go for Doku there to try to kind of create those chances off the left for Holland. And I just feel like we're matched up very well to them this time around.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And on the break as well, we can hit them as well with Gyokeres and Madueke and Eze. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. We'll see what happens. I do think.
What's your score prediction?
3-1 Arsenal.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah.
I have 2-1 Arsenal.
2-1? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'll be very difficult to keep them quiet, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, we'll put a bow on it here because I know you guys are duking it out. So, thank you for being here. I don't know why.
You're welcome.
Well, no, not. I was talking to the listeners, but yeah, John, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you, listeners, for being here and kind of being here with us while we talk about Arsenal and for tuning in. We really appreciate it. So that's John. You can follow him on Twitter at 305cast, and you can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. You can follow the pod at Not That Gooner. You can follow the pod on Blue Sky at notthatgooner.bsky.social, on Instagram at Not That Kind of Gooner, on YouTube at Not That Kind of Gooner. Do make sure you subscribe there, and on TikTok at Not That Kind of Gooner. And you can also email us if you so choose at notthatgooner or notthatkindofgooner at gmail.com. So we'll be back with you after the City match, probably early next week, to talk about what happens there. And yeah. Thanks so much for being here. So, we will talk to you after Arsenal demolish Manchester City. Until then, take care, get your mind out of the gunner, and we'll talk to you soon. So, bye. Bye.